I call the steering committee meeting to order. For the reading and approval of the minutes, I call on Vice Chair Brad Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had a chance to review the minutes, find them in order. I make a motion that we approve as presented.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. First item on our agenda this evening is to announce a vacancy on the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I understand that Commissioner Phillips has some questions for the mayor.
Mayor Burgess, I don't mean to blindside you, but since we adopted our comprehensive plan a couple of years back, and it took us a long time to do that, the Board of Zoning Appeals has a big job, a huge job, much more responsibility than they had in the past. And if I'm not mistaken, they have 5 members and a couple of alternates that's on that board.
Yes, sir.
And to serve on that, now you have to have qualifications, and the way that we select this people to go on that board, is it possible to change that selection process and fill those vacancies similar to what we do on the regular planning commission?
Well, the regular planning commission, those are mayor appointments, and I don't think we can do that, but I'd have to review and ask our county attorney if the BZA, if that process could be adopted. I do not know.
I don't mean to say that before they didn't have a lot to do. They did, but now their functions are extremely important to make good decisions. And I'm just wondering if it's time for us to look at, if we could take a look at qualifications and what it would take to make that board a little bit more functional. I think they've only got 5 members.
Yes.
And increase that to like 7 members or something like that, and so that it could be a little bit more informed and a little bit better attended, and if one person's out, it's hard to make a decision.
Well, I will take that under advisement and consult with our county attorney and see if there's any flexibility. If there's any flexibility, I will so get the county attorney to send each of you some sort of clarification of that.
Thank you.
If you don't hear anything, we can't move forward, we can't make any changes.
Thank you, Commissioner Phillips, Mayor. Second item on our agenda, we need to announce 2 vacancies on the beer board. Third, we need to fill 2 vacancies on the code enforcement board. We have 3 applications this evening. Mrs. Kay Jernigan, Mr. James Averwater, and Mrs. Deborah Kennedy. At this time, we would like to give each of the candidates an opportunity to make a statement and answer questions from the committee if that's needed. Is Ms. Kay Jernigan in the audience? Okay, Mr. James Averwater.
I'm here, sir.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Jim Averwater, and for the benefit of those that don't know me, I've been building in this county for a number of years, let's say. I also serve on the Planning Commission. I'm a longtime member of the Home Builders Association, past president, chairman of the board for those some years ago. Also very active with the Rutherford County Codes Officials Association. A lot of what we do there is try to work with the codes departments on new code adoption process, and then try to educate the community on what is going to be happening in the code, what changes are coming down the pike so that everybody's prepared for it. As far as the appeals board goes, fortunately we don't have a whole lot of appeals, so it's not like we need a lot. In fact, it's been a long time since we met, but I think that that's testament to the fact that your staff over at the codes department does a good job of staying up to date on the codes, is knowledgeable, maintains a good relationship with the community, and also does a lot of outreach as far as education goes and planning for this sort of thing. But I'm here to offer my services. If you'd like me to serve again, I'd be happy to do it.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Mr. Averwater? Mrs. Deborah Kennedy?
I'm Deborah, and I did not mean to put my name on that particular board.
Okay, so
Although,
withdraw
I mean,
your,
I'm sorry?
you want to just withdraw your name from
Yes,
that
you
board?
can.
Okay. I noticed you got 3.
Yes.
Okay, so we're
I-
going to take
I
it up for
mean,
that.
okay.
Okay, so we have 2 applicants.
Huh.
Mrs. Kay Jernigan and Mr. James Averwater. Is there a motion?
Is Mr. Jernigan here?
Ms. Jonah Gonzalez, I think is here.
I'll make a motion to approve the two applicants, send that forward to the commission.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Averwater, your name will be recommended to the full commission this month. Thank you, sir. The next item on our agenda is to fill a female vacancy on the Limeball Library Board to fill the unexpired term of Mrs. Neil Blankenship. This term will expire on June 2017. We have two applications for this board, Mrs. Joyce Ely and Mrs. Deborah Kennedy. Is Miss Ely in the audience?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Hello.
I am a frequent user of the library. In fact, I love the library. The library is a wonderful resource for our community. People from all walks of life can use the library and take advantage of the resources that are available there. I would like to serve on the board and be a part of the contribution the library makes for the quality of life in our community, and I appreciate your consideration, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss Ely. Any questions for Miss Ely? Mrs. Kennedy?
Set my big bag down. I'm Deborah Kennedy, and I am an avid reader. I love the library too. This would be the first time I've ever served on a board. And it's something I've always wanted to do to give back to the community. I feel that serving on the library, and I know there's more than one vacancy, would be a good fit for me. I also feel that I think I could contribute in terms of marketing and bringing new ideas to bring more people into the library to use the services there. So I'm just hoping that I'm considered for one of the vacancies on the board.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Kennedy? Okay,
You
we have,
said-
go ahead.
You said you had management experience. Would you explain, or maybe I misread
I
this?
have, yes, I am operations manager right now with the company I work for, and we manufacture healthcare products, specifically laryngeal masks. I just finished my MBA at MTSU. I'm planning on going to law school in the fall. It's called What Do You Want to Be After You've Grown Up? I'm seeking all of these ambitions that I never did before. So I've got lots of
You
management
got a lot
and
of
marketing
ambition, too.
experience.
We appreciate your application. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, Ms. Kennedy. There is a letter here from Mrs. Rita Shacklett, who is the director of the Limeball Library Board. The Limeball Library Board of Directors has asked me to contact you in regards to the board vacancy left by Mrs. Nell Blankenship. Joyce Ely of Murfreesboro is applying to fill this vacancy. At the regular meeting on August the 17th, the Board of Directors voted to endorse Joyce Ely as a board member. Thank you for your consideration, Mrs. Shacklett. We have two applications. Is there a motion?
Move that both are nominated and vote for one.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Who's your second?
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson,
Ms. Ely.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Ely.
Commissioner P,
Ely.
Commissioner Phillips,
Ely?
Commissioner Stevens,
Ely.
Commissioner Turner,
Ms. Kennedy.
Commissioner Gooch.
Miss Ely.
6-1.
Miss Ely, your name will be recommended to the full commission at our our September meeting.
September 17th.
September 17th. Okay, our next item on our agenda is to fill a vacancy on the Stones River Regional Library Board. This will also fill the unexpired term of Mrs. Blankenship. This term will also expire June 2017. We have two applicants, Mrs. Deborah Kennedy and Mr. Phil Griffin. Ms. Kennedy, would you like to make another statement or suffice?
No.
Okay.
I've got
Not
one more
unless-
Okay.
I've got one more question. What commission district do you reside in?
11 Smyrna.
You're actually in 10.
I'm in 10?
Yes, ma'am.
I thought it was 11.
Is your husband Dr. Kennedy?
No.
William, is it Bill or?
Mm-mm. I'm not married.
Oh. I don't think that's going to be your husband.
Are you available?
I'm sorry, I thought you meant for the board.
But we digress.
She said yes.
That's why I'm here.
That's Commissioner Gooch's wife right
Okay.
there.
That's my wife. Mr. Griffin, would you like to make a statement to the?
Yes, sir. Commissioners, good evening. Thank you all for letting me apply and offer a few words. I think I know all of you, some of you more than others, but I think all of you know I've got a strong passion for local government and a strong interest in serving Rutherford County, county that I love. A couple of reasons I picked this library opening to apply for. Like Commissioner Ely said, a love for books, a love for the library and what they do for our communities. And also, and it's something I want you to strongly consider, when I was in college at Mississippi State, but before moving here and living here in Rutherford County, I served as a board member of the Tillamook County and Starkville, Mississippi Library Board, and was elected by the other members 2 years later as the president of that board. And we were able to do a lot of things there, and I think I could be a good representative for Rutherford County on the Stones River Library Board, and I appreciate your consideration and the opportunity to serve. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Are there any questions for Mr. Griffin?
I've got a general question, and I don't know how, I don't know. And you think that I would, I've been up here maybe too long. We've got 2 library boards, one that we filled and another we want to fill. What's the difference? Somebody explain that to me. Anybody explain that to me?
Let Ms. Shackford answer that question.
I'm really shocked. I can tell you that I'm the director of the library system. And the library itself is governed by a joint board, a county board, and a city board. Each have 7 members. And this is the one that Ms. Ely has applied for. The regional board is through the state library, and they service about 9 counties. Our state is divided into, they've just changed a couple of years ago, but about 7 regions. And that is, some states do that, some do not. And each region services a certain number of counties. And the only ones that are not serviced by the regionals are your 4 metropolitan libraries, and that's Nashville, Memphis, Knoxville, and Chattanooga. And so the regional board is made up of representatives from the counties that particular region serves. So this is Stones River region. Is that?
It does, but what do they do?
Basically, they come and brag on their libraries in their county. They report to the state, so anything that will take state action that they have to vote on or whatever, that comes through those boards. But they don't vote on anything that affects what we do as our local library system.
Thank you.
But they do service us. We get a lot of services from them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shackler. Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion? We have 2 applications.
I move we nominate both and vote for one.
Second. Is there a second? All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Becky, if you call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson,
Mr. Griffin.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Griffin.
Commissioner P,
Kennedy.
Commissioner Phillips,
Griffin.
Commissioner Stevens,
Griffin.
Commissioner Turner,
Griffin.
Commissioner Gooch.
Mr. Griffin.
6-1.
Mr. Griffin, your name will be submitted to the full commission September the 17th.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda, we need to announce the following for the September commission meeting. We will elect a chairman pro tem. We will also elect the commission chaplain, and we will confirm the election of the commission chairman. We need to appoint the appointment of judicial commissioners, Mr. Casey Brown and Chanto Honor. Is there a motion concerning this?
Move for their appointment, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we need the recommendation for the 2015-2016 Standing Committee. All of you should have a copy of that. This recommendation was, the first priority was the number that the commissioner asked to be on the committee. So for example, if that was your first request, then you probably got that. The second criteria was on seniority on that committee. I think that's what we've done in the past. So at this time, I'll take discussion or motion on this committee assignment.
Make a motion that we accept the standing committees that have submitted and move forward with their approval at the commission meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any-
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
how many got their first choice on this?
I don't believe that anyone did not get their first choice, if I recall.
I counted them all, 21 got their first
Okay.
choice.
That's unusual, that's good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And 18 got their second choice.
How many got their third choice?
3. 18 and 3 is 21.
All right,
And I was one of those 3.
If there's no further questions, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're now going to look at the retirement plan. I would like to invite to the table Mrs. Sonia Stevenson, our HR director, and the mayor would like to also invite you to the table. Or you can sit right there.
Without objection, I think this is comfortable right here.
Okay. Ms. Stevens?
Good evening. So what I tried to do is I took all the data that I could think of you may want to know, and I tried to simplify it as best as possible. Some of the slides are just being there for informational purposes only, and I did not make copies of it because it's several slides long, but if any of you would like a copy of this, I'll be happy to email it to you, just because it was on there and I wasn't sure if you would want to take all the pages. So the first thing that I want to mention, during the budget process, for those that were here during that process, it was mentioned several times about the benefit package of the employees, and one of the things that was brought up was the retirement plan. A couple of years ago, we revisited our retirement plan at that time, and it was decided by the legislative body that we would stay on our current plan. But I was asked to go back and research and provide some additional information, and additionally have been asked to have the members of TCRS, which is Tennessee Consolidated Retirement, to come back for a follow-up meeting to answer any questions. So what my purpose is this evening is to give you the base groundwork of like what plan we currently have, what options are available, so that you can prepare the questions that you may have when TCRS comes, so that they could, you know, better present. So it's a little bit easier without having to come up with a lot of different things. So if you have questions as we go along, if you'll send those to me so that I can forward them, they'll know better how to respond to your questions when they come. The plan is for them to come in October for the October steering committee meeting. If everything works out for them, so.
Ms. Stevenson, is there just one plan for all employees? School board different, school employees different than general, county general?
Currently, there are 2 plans within Rutherford County. There are multiple plans that can be had, but in Rutherford County, our Board of Education classified at Rutherford County General, which includes highway and, you know, ambulance and all those, are on one plan, and then the teachers are part of the state plan because they're under the state program. So back in 2014, I believe it was July 1 of 2014, they implemented the state plan for teachers. And so they are under the hybrid plan, which we will discuss that later on in the presentation.
This legislative body will have
New teachers, right?
no,
new teachers.
no input with that plan though, correct?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
County Commission has any influence, any decisions in that plan?
The existing plan that's in place is for everybody who is full-time on the payroll now or are currently retired.
I was referring back to the teachers again.
Oh, the teachers. No, that's under a state plan. We didn't have any ability to
So
modify.
we've got a large group of employees that will not be part of this whole discussion process, right?
Correct. Yes, sir. And just so that it doesn't, when we start talking about retirement benefits, it is unsettling to some because they think that we're talking about their retirement benefits. And while new hires are absolutely important to us and the county for moving forward, anything that we discuss this evening and moving forward will only be for new hires after that line in the sand is drawn. If you say January 1, 2016, it'll be new hires from that point forward, not existing population.
Assuming we change something.
Assuming that you do, that's what I'm saying. If you change anything, it does not impact existing full-time population. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that so that it would not, you know, upset. So the first thing I think it's important for you to know, I know that there's several people that have mentioned that they felt like that our pension plan was in trouble. So I wanted to give some highlights about our current pension plan. It was established in 1972. Currently, TCRS is one of the best funded pension funds across the nation. It's in good financial shape, has total assets of $47.5 billion and a plan net position of 42.9, which that means is after their expenses, that's what the plan's worth. Standard & Poor's ranks TCRS as a AAA long-term rating and an A1+ short-term rating, which is the highest possible rating issued by nationally by Standard & Poor's for the pension funds. TCRS was awarded the 2014 Public Pension Standards Award by Public Pension Coordinating Council, which is highly respected. For the 26th consecutive year, TCRS has been awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Currently, the plan has 489 participating political subdivisions. This not only includes counties, but it's cities. It is utility districts, hospitals, airports, I mean, a number of agencies throughout the state. So it has 489 different participating subdivisions. Active members as of June 30th was 214,060. Current retirees on the plan is 290,000. The projected investment returns are based on a 7.5% rate of return, and you may remember back in 2009 when the market kind of plummeted, that impacted our rate of return, which the rate of return is what determines the rates, and our rates are a percentage of our total full-time salaries, just so you know how that's calculated and we get our rate. This past year, the rate was 16.7, so we did better than projected. 2013 was 9.9, and the last 3-year average has been 10.6, so we have done better than planned. And you say, what does that mean? Well, in order to fund and to keep everything funded, it's basing it on a rate of return. If we do better than a rate of return, it's just like a savings account. If you put $100 in and you get 3%, you know, that's one amount, but if you get 6% because it improves, that's more money in the fund that helps reduce the liability that you have. TCRS Investment Division has 14 chartered financial analysts. These are like, they're at the top of their game. They're the smartest of smart. So they manage these, make sure the investments are done properly so that we get good rates of return.
Sonia,
Yes, sir.
before you leave that, well, a little late to say
There we
that.
go. No.
I had a question on your active employees, you've got 214,060,
Mhm.
and then you've got 133,290 current retirees. Have you got statistics on projected retirees versus active members? If you don't, that's something I'd like to see before I'm willing to make, changes on this. For instance, you may have statistics from, say, last year, how many retirees versus active. Basically, I'm wanting to see how quickly, our costs may increase. If you don't have that, we can get that
So you're
later.
wanting to know how many potentially could retire? Is that what you're asking?
And I understand that, I'm just looking for an average there. And I understand that at any given time, we could have a large number of employees decide to retire. But
Mr. Chairman, Lisa would like to say something.
And I just pulled, where Sonia is getting this for the state, I've got for us.
And I have our
And you,
numbers too.
okay, so, this is as of June 30, 2014, that is reported in our June 30, 2015 reports. We have 698 inactive employees or beneficiaries currently receiving benefits. We have 1,804 inactive employees who are entitled to but not yet receiving benefits. And we have 2,432 active employees.
And then later on in the slide presentation, I'll tell you how many of those actives could retire. So when we get to that number, I have that number.
I think, to your point earlier, Sonia, and even to what Ms. Nolan just said, could you make sure you email this to everybody on the steering committee with that information? I think that's where Commissioner Pease, I hate to speak for him, was probably going with. It lets us digest a lot of this a lot over a longer amount of time than just see it tonight and say, now what do we do? And it keeps us in front of us. So if you could just make sure to email that, I think that'd be great.
I will.
Thank you.
And this is I tried to simplify it, like I said, but it's still going to be a lot of
Sure.
information.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's even more important to email it to
so-
let us keep digesting
Absolutely.
that.
I'll email it to all the
Okay.
commissioners, and that way everyone
Thank you.
has it. So it says, why maintain a pension for employees? One, it helps with recruiting and retention, recruiting of new employees, retention of current. It supplements their compensation package when the wages are lower than the industry standards or we're not what the others are doing. That helps supplement it. It's a guaranteed fixed benefit post-retirement. And it's also managed by a team of individuals who are well-versed in public pensions. The one difficulty with 401ks, and we'll get in this later as well, is it depends on how it's managed. It can be owned and managed by the employee. It can be owned and managed by an entity. There's also with ERISA, which is the federal government regulates. There are some standards and rules that we have to go by as an entity if we have a DC plan. And so I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that as we move forward too. It's not that it's not doable, it's just that you need to be aware that it comes with, it doesn't totally remove the liability from us. What would cause the pension liability to increase? A couple of things, the employee population. We talked about the 7.5% rate of return, if that declines. If lifespans surpasses projections, and they base it and they evaluate these every so often and say, here's what the average lifespan is for a woman and a man, and this is what your population. All that goes into the actuarial analysis of our population. And then it says actuarial losses where they, they're just taking what their best guess is on what the population is going to be at that point in time. So there's several things that can impact the liability. Liability and risk. Back in the beginning of 2015, GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, required that the state and local governments begin to include the net pension liability as an entry in their liability section of their consolidated annual financial report. And so it says currently the standards only require the liabilities to be listed in footnotes. I forgot to take that out. That was for the prior one, but it says GASB will require unfunded other post-employee benefits or OPEB liabilities to be recorded. So
That's going to be an ugly number.
yeah,
The OPEB is going to be the really ugly number.
because that's all post-employment benefits.
That's the health insurance.
Right,
benefit.
that's what I'm saying. includes that. Underfunded pensions and an aging workforce increases risk as well. However, Rutherford County, as of June 30th, 2014, is funded at 106.5%, which means that we, you don't want to say.
Our actuarial determined assets exceed our actuarially determined liability.
So instead of us being underfunded, I don't want to say we're overfunded.
Well,
just,
at 14, we are overfunded.
Right.
But as you said before, there are so many factors that affect it. And rolling back a year, at June 30th, 13, we were 98% funded.
correct.
Well, let me ask you a question since you've offered that information. If we continue to trend as we are now, where would our funding level be 5 years from now?
Well,
Assuming that
Well, I mean,
same
there-
things,
in the reports and what they give us, it's the sensitivity, there's a sensitivity analysis that they have to give you, just so that you can get a sense. I mean, Sonia's done well about going all over the risk factors, but one is, what if that, what if you don't make 7.5%? You know,
It's based
so-
on the rate of return. So
Right.
this will change every time the rate of return changes.
and I understand there are a lot of variables.
Okay, so this, I don't know if this kind of give you, I hate to say numbers are squishy, but to me, these are, actuarial numbers are squishy. A 1% decline in that investment would take us from being overfunded by 12.3 million to underfunded by 18.9. A 1% up takes us from being overfunded at 12.3 million to 38 million.
And it's also based on the retired population, and so as that retired population changes, so do I mean, it's so many moving pieces.
Right, well, that's why I prefaced that by saying if all things being the same, can you look forward
Well,
any there?
I only look back to 1 year, and then I think this sensitivity to see, what if your investment.
Could be very volatile, that's
yes.
understandable.
Yes, and then, as you said, with this new evaluation, that they're looking at it almost every year now.
They've moved. Used to, we would get our rates every other year, so they would calculate them on the prior year's history, and then they would set the rate for 2 years forward. Now they're looking at it annually. They're going to give us a new rate. So beginning July 1, 2016, we will begin getting our rate annually, so that when something happens like in 2009, we're not caught off guard having to try to make up. It's already there for the prior year, and it gives us time to adjust.
And two, when you've got that dip, when you look at the rates of return, I don't know if you remember seeing those schedules, I don't know if you haven't been there, but they're all over the board, and just seeing what the average is. Historically, we're over the 7.5%
Well,
rate of return.
her statistics were showing us 16-something%
10
versus 7.5.
Right.
But that's what's giving you your overage right now, I assume, or part of that.
Well, I mean, when you're looking in the back and saying, well, what did it happen? And that's what this actuarial valuation is. It's saying, okay, these are the assessments. This is what we based our assumptions on. Were they right? How good were we?
Right. Well,
And that, let me just say, and then that loss that was 2008 to 2009, they smoothed that over 30 years. So it's that hit that we have, they're not going to affect us right then. They're going to take that out.
And so one of the things that I mentioned first was that the average over the last 3 years was 10.6, and I believe, don't hold me to this, but I believe they said the 5-year average was 9.3. And so that takes into account some deeper data. So we're looking for 7.5, and if the average is 9.3. Now, could that change tomorrow? Absolutely. I mean, Wall Street, but that's what they're basing it on. Is that.
well, any information y'all can give us, it helps us predict. Because personally, I don't know about the rest of these guys. I'd like to keep a pension where we can attract and keep employees. And I think that's one reason that we have good employees and we are able to retain a lot of them if possible. And that's why I want as much information I can is what this is going to cost us. So, thank you.
The demographics of the full-time employees, and this is just county general and highway. I had the Board of Education classified salaries, but I didn't have the other to give a good analysis. So currently there's 1,038 active full-time employees. 620 of them have less than 10 years of service. A few years ago when I did this, the average time was 6.7 years, and so now we're up to 10. So they are staying a little bit longer. 44 have 30 years of service or more. 214 are eligible to retire today. So there's your other number that you needed. Of our current active population of this group, 214 can retire today. Average age of active full-time population is 43.44. The average years of service of active full-time population is 9.73. And the average salary of active full-time is $32,966. The type of retirement plans, and I'm not going to read all this to you, I'm going to give it to you in a nutshell, but the defined benefit is basically your pension. It's where a lump sum of money is put into a plan for an expected benefit later, and it's a guaranteed benefit. And so that cost can be shared with the employer or employee, or it can be specifically by the employer. The defined contribution is a little bit different. It's the 401ks type things, and those can be employer and employee, or it can be a straight employee plan. It can go either way. It does not guarantee or have a particular value. That can change, just as we talked about the rate of return at 7.5. That return changes as well because it's attached to Wall Street. I mean, it's based on the investments and how well they do. The other thing with the defined contribution is you have to choose the plan whether it's going to be maintained and managed by the employee, or if it's going to be maintained and managed by an entity that we choose to represent the county to do that. And they come with different requirements either way. So those are the type. And then also the hybrid plan is a bit of both. It has part defined benefit, part pension, and part defined contribution. And again, it can go a mutual sharing of the contribution rate for a hybrid plan.
Sonia, another quick question, and I know we're not discussing this tonight, but do you look for the state and the teachers' plan to do any change in this direction?
They already did. They did in 2014.
So, all right.
The state's plan has a lot larger population, and so when they were looking at their population, the liability, because that impacts the entire state, and all the, our taxes are attached to that as well. Their population is not only state employees, but it's all the teachers throughout the state, not just Rutherford County, but any teacher that participates in that plan. They're associated with that, and it has several other entities, which I don't know them right off the top of my head, but they did this to make sure that they had some controllables in there for their pension. And there's some things that we can do that I'm going to mention that will mirror the savings to the county, but may not be exactly the same, because we have several options available to us. I'm going to give you a few because it is very overwhelming. You can go to the TCRS website, and every plan has any combination of 6 or 7 options within a plan. And there's 4 different plans that you can choose from. So
Is that when they went to the hybrid system?
it is. So you say, well, what is the private sector doing versus the public sector? One of the things I hear is the private sector got away from it. And for the majority of the private sector, they did. There still are private sector individuals who have a defined benefit, about 19%. I got these numbers, just so you know, off of the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Local.
So
Statewide or local?
I did statewide, state of Tennessee.
So local, you don't have that,
Like Murfreesboro, Rutherford County?
Rutherford County?
No, sir. It broke it down by state. I didn't see a way to break it down by county.
Okay.
So across the state, 19% for private, 68% for defined contribution. I will say the majority of the private sector who has a defined benefit are union operated. That is not the only factors that are in there, but that is the primary number. I do remember reading that.
In that 19%, the ones that were grandfathered in, could that be it? Could that include those?
It didn't say that, because if it was the 14% is the DB and DC where they shared, so as I read it and understood it, if you've ever gone to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they don't give a whole lot of explanation, they just give you a lot of numbers. So as I understood it, these are the groups that may have a bit of both, and I don't know if that means that they were grandfathered or what. These are just the numbers that they had for straight plans on that site.
The private sector, when they did away with the defined plans and went to 401k plans, there was a bunch of folks that were 50% of the population was grandfathered. And as time goes by, that dwindles and dwindles, and probably ought to be at about that 20% figure right now. And that's the reason I ask, does that include those? Don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
No, sir, I'm sorry. I'll try to research that for you some
Well,
more, but
I don't know if you can research it or not, but
I don't know how I can find it, but
if that does include grandfathered employees, that 19% 10 years from now would be a
less.
lot lower than that.
Oh, yeah. Of the local and state governments, 83% of them have a defined benefit, 33% have a defined contribution, and 27 have a combination of. When the numbers total more than 100%, that means that, you know, part of these numbers are in both of these, the way I understood it to be. So, private employee contribution, it's unknown. There was nothing listed on the Bureau of Labor Statistics. However, I did see that the average contribution rate was 6.8%, but I didn't know what percentage of the employees actually contribute. The defined contribution, 68% of the employees contribute to that plan. Local and state government employee contribution, 78%, average contribution rate of 6.6, and the defined contribution is 58% contribute to that. So this just kind of gives you a snapshot across the state of Tennessee, what others are doing. And again, I got this off the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I want to go there. So what are other counties across the state doing? There's a couple of counties who have withdrawn, and I don't think this was recent because this was on our last presentation in 2012. Madison and Meigs withdrew at that point, and it is the understanding of TCRS they don't have anything, but again, not 100% positive on that. Counties that are on the DC plan is Coffee, Dyer, and Hancock. Counties who have their own pension, defined benefit plan is Davidson, Knox, and Shelby. Counties who moved to a hybrid or will move on October 1st of 2015 is Hamilton, Roane, and Weakley. And the counties without a pension at all is Houston, as far as we can tell. So the assumption is that Madison and Meigs is doing something, because the only one that we're aware of is doing nothing is Houston.
Just out of curiosity, and so you might not even know this, on the ones that have their own pension with Davidson, Knox, and Shelby, you know, Rutherford County is at least projected by 2050 to be around 600,000 people, which is roughly Metro Nashville and some of that area of Davidson County. How are their plans right now for the ones that are just solely
I believe I have
funded
Davidson County,
pensions?
right? I have Davidson counties. I don't think I have the others.
While we're forecasting or projecting, I'd be
Right.
curious to know what they're looking
What
at
their
while we're
plan
heading
is,
down.
right.
Yeah, while we're heading down that same path from a population perspective.
Okay, Davidson, their pension was established September 1st of 1964. But it doesn't tell what they pay. It doesn't give me the percentage.
There was an article in the paper about a year ago where they had, the mayor had proposed some idea of borrowing money and investing it to try to get a
beef it
return,
up,
and it was a big gamble, and I think the council didn't, I don't remember all the details, but it's underfunded.
That's what I was trying to figure out, is from a population perspective, if we're going that same direction, I'm trying to figure out now, are these counties currently where we could be 20 years from now, a population perspective, employee perspective, and they're all underfunded? What does that tell us? Does it tell us anything? Does it just mean they invested poorly? I don't know. I'm just trying to get to Commissioner Pea's point. all the info we can so we can make the right decision. And that was one of those areas I was curious about, was those with that particular population size that we could get at in 20 years.
To me,
It-
this
It's really more about, not about population, it's more about the structure of their plan.
plan.
Well, and that's a little of both. I mean, as the population grows, services naturally grow, and then that adds to employee base and things like that. That's kind of where I was going with that.
Well, the other component is, did these counties contribute to the fund at a level that they should have funded?
Right.
You know, and we fund, as we've talked about, all these actuarial valuations, we fund 100%
Yeah.
of that estimated contribution rate. So, I mean, that's the big question is, did they not, or choose not to contribute at the level that
During a
they
budget
should?
time when
Right.
it was a crunch, did they say, we're not gonna put
This
the
year we can't
6%
do it.
in, we're not gonna do it, and then you end up
Right.
underfunded, yeah. And that's a few slides later where I'm talking about, I don't wanna say the risk, but the scary part about having your own DB plan, carving it out, managing it, and those type things is, one, you gotta have the expertise and the people in place. It takes highly educated individuals to do all this investing to make sure that it makes money. And then also the other piece is, and I hope I'm not misstating, but I believe a commissioner said at one time, we can't mandate something for future commissions. So the one thing that's set up is we've accepted into this plan, if we go with our own pension plan, which I don't think that's what we're advocating, I know I'm not advocating for that. The risk is that if something happens and you don't have the money that month, that year, and it's bad and you don't fund it, then you end up with the unfunded liability, and therein lies a huge problem. So this would not be, or will not be my recommendation to go to our own plan.
Yeah, that would be a very bad choice. Do we know why these people that left, we don't know their reason for?
Which one? The
ones that moved and the ones that-
hybrid?
Well, I think you can get really good information from TCRS when they come. I was in a meeting just a week or so ago, and they say since they've made these plan options available to us for new employees, 15 counties have made some sort of change, or 15 municipalities. I don't know whether
Local
the counties
governments.
is.
Local governments, it could be
Local governments
cities.
have-
These are the only counties.
15
that's
have made
change.
some sort of change in the last year and a half, whatever it's been.
Grandfathering current employees and going to a new plan.
Going to a new for the new employees.
I'm not a fan of doing what everybody else is doing, because that may not necessarily be the way to go, but when we have 15 people that have changed, there's a reason why. And I think that we need to look at what that reason is and maybe see if we can benefit from that thinking too.
A lot. Three cities in the Tri-Cities area, they
Only-
withdrew.
Right, yeah, 3 of the 95 counties
How about those are
changed.
cities?
But the rest of them are cities, as I understand it, so it could be, Murfreesboro, Laverne, however many cities are across the state of Tennessee, they're part of the plan.
What happens
Utilities too.
in an underfunded plan? What happens? I mean, if Davidson County, as an example, is underfunded and they continue to be underfunded and go down, and what happens?
Well, the worst
What
that
are
can
the
happen,
consequences?
3 or 4 cities and counties have bankrupt. That's the worst case. So
And what happens if they bankrupt?
somebody doesn't get back.
Somebody doesn't get paid.
Well, now, wait a minute before we freak everybody out. There is, under federal pensions, and it's set up under the federal pensions. The state, I'm sure, has insurance in this, and it goes to the federal government, and any of those that, for a pension plan that's already set up, it's general something, they come in and relieve that.
You talking
So-
about Ursula laws?
No, I'll have to get back to you on that, but it's something with a pension. If a pension is set up, it's under a pension plan, it operates under the federal oversight, and I'm not talking about ERISA, I'm talking about, it's a different oversight for that pension. But if a county or city goes bankrupt that has a pension and they've been participating in this through the federal, then the federal government comes in and relieves that for the existing. But I don't know the exact acronym. It's an acronym, and I can't remember what it is. But So I don't want,
I don't know, I think we need to get TCRS to explain that.
They'll explain that better.
If they
That's-
participated in any sort
it's
of,
above
it's
my
sort
pay
of a
grade.
mortgage insurance you may be describing, but I'm not sure they're in that pool.
and they may not be, so I don't know, but
Are there penalties to counties that would have to rely on that, or has any county in Tennessee gotten to that point yet?
I'm not
Not
aware.
have
Okay.
county bankrupt.
Let me just, the funding correctly in good economic times is probably not that difficult to do.
Right.
But in not so good economic times, let's just say that the economy went to heck in a bushel basket, nobody was buying cars, and Nissan shut down, and
Theoretically, as long as we pay what they say we owe, it should be kept.
I agree, Jeff, but what if we can no longer pay it?
Yeah.
What if the funds aren't there, is what I'm saying? Who pays it?
The taxpayers. I mean, you have to increase the taxes.
Well, there are some municipalities that are not fully funded.
Financial companies came in and took over reputable companies, dismantled those companies. And how they did that was overfunded pension funds. They came in and robbed those pension funds, and that no longer exists. There's a reason why they don't exist anymore, okay? And I'm just trying my best to figure out long-term for us.
That's the best thing.
You know, what are we looking at long-term, and what's best not only for the employees, but for the county as a whole. And I think that's what Commissioner Stevens was saying a minute ago too. What's going to be best for us long-term, not right now, not 5 years from now, but after we're gone.
Oh, absolutely. That's on my list of questions.
I know these are tough questions for you to answer, and I know you're not an expert, and I know how tough those things are to figure. So there's just a lot of stuff that are out there that I know employees are counting on. But the bottom line is, whatever we do probably are not going to affect the employees that we have right now.
I don't, well, correct. I mean, I don't think you can unless the county went bankrupt, in effect. And even then, I don't know what would happen, so.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm just wondering if there are changes that can be made. You know, there are early retirement options that the federal government did away with. You know, you could draw Social Security at an early age, a long time ago. Now you can't. So I'm just wondering if those are some type of options that we could eventually look at as well. If push comes to shove and we got some real
4 or
tough.
5 pages of those options just that
Yeah.
you're describing.
Right.
As she gets a little bit further into it.
But could we change them? That's my question.
We can't change what our existing employee population has. We can't change what we already have in place for our existing population. We can only make changes for future populations.
Okay.
That's-
So,
Nothing can be done with the ones that are on there now.
gotcha, thank you.
Okay. So what are some more things that other counties are doing? I know for a fact I talked to the Montgomery HR director, county HR director quite a bit, and he says that they're reviewing their plan as well. Currently, they're on the legacy with no employee contribution. Sumner's on the legacy, no employee contribution. Wilson, same. Williamson is on the legacy and a 5% employee contribution. I'm just trying to get some of the ones that were local to us.
We always compare our salaries to Williamson County, and we always don't recognize that they make the employee pay 5% of their salary to fund that pension. So when we look at our salaries, they're not quite as high as they are in Williamson County. You've got to keep in mind that ours aren't required to make that 5% contribution, but they are over there. So that's why when we did a salary survey, we've got to really compare apples to apples, because everybody's doing something a little bit different. You can't just look at the salaries only. And that's a classic example. That's a lot of money.
Well, the others that we compared to, though, in that same pool, which was Sumner and Montgomery, are the same as ours.
But they're also looking and talking though, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So what are other local entities doing? The state of Tennessee, of course, I've already mentioned, went to the hybrid plan for newly hired full-time teachers, state and higher education employees, which would also be the universities, MTSU, Austin Peay, those type places. Their DB is defined benefit is a 5 years vesting, and their DC is immediate vesting. City of Murfreesboro has a DB plan. which they closed it, so they closed that to new hires effective July 1, 2010, and went to a straight DC plan. Mandatory 3% of salary for employee contribution with 5-year cliff vesting, supplemental with up to 5% matching of the employee contribution. They also, what's not mentioned in here is they also have a supplemental plan that they will match up to 9%, 4%, so the combined matching is up to 9% for them. So they're basically doing a 9% contribution rate. City of
Now, Sonia, that 3% required mandatory, is that a permanent? I mean, I know they can sign up initially, but do they have the ability to opt out of that at some point?
this is not an opt-out, no.
I've had
Not for
some-
the 3%. Now, the one that they can opt out of is the supplemental DC plan, and they can opt out of that one, which is the matching up to 4%. But this is 3% is the mandatory 3%, according to Glenn Godwin. He sent me the email. They have 2 separate plans. They have 2 DC plans basically. They have one that's the mandatory 3%, and the city matches 3%, and then they have another DC plan which they'll match up to 4%, and the employee can opt out of that and choose not to participate. And if they do, then the city doesn't do the other percentage on that. So, City of Murfreesboro Board of Education teachers and certified follow the state plan. Their Board of Education classified or on the legacy plan, the same as us with no employee contribution. Town of Smyrna has a DB plan, but it ended to members, and I don't have the date when it ended, and they are now on a straight DC plan as well. They have matching up to 9%, 5-year graded vesting schedule. City of Laverne has a DC plan with matching up to 4% and immediate vesting. So you mentioned wages a few minutes ago. One of the things that I did on the same thing, you know, when we're starting to look at this, what does it cost the county? What does it cost the employees? If we're trying to look for a balance, you know, can they afford it? Can we afford it kind of thing? What can everybody afford? This is pulled off the Bureau of Labor Statistics as well, and I just took some of our positions that are just, would be common in private sector or public sector, just to give an idea of what the different jobs pay. This is the median for Rutherford County, not the mean, because to get the mean, I'd have to take all the salaries in the maintenance position to do that. So this is the mean in the across the state of Tennessee for same public sector jobs. So that would be, you know, that would include the bigger ones, Davidson and Knox and Shelby. So you have to take that into consideration. And then the mean of the private industry across the state of Tennessee, just to kind of give you a snapshot of where we are versus what others are. I won't read all this. This is a very detailed explanation of the differences between a defined benefit plan and a defined contribution. Some of the things that are, you know, it talks about the contributions, which we already have by the employer and the employee. How you have to manage the investment. That is one thing with the DB plan. It is managed by TCRS. The DC is the managing of the investment is the employee's responsibility, and they're having to choose investment options offered through the plan unless we have a plan official that does the oversights and does those assets for them. The amount of benefits paid up on there, the pension is a fixed rate. For a DC, it depends on the contributions made by the employee and the employer, so it's, again, it's based on what's put in there. It talks about the different ways that you can receive a benefit, the guarantees on the benefit. Here's what we were looking for earlier, the guarantee of benefits. The federal government, through the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, PBGC, guarantees some amount of the benefits. So if a county goes bankrupt, that's what's supposed to pick up in place of that. What?
Jeff found that
It's private
it's
sector.
private sector.
Only, okay.
Yeah.
This was on TCRS's website.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's.
So that's still a question we'll ask them, but this was on TCRS's website where I got this.
They'll pick it up, but it might not be the full amount.
Full amount, correct. No federal guarantee of benefits for a DC plan. And then it talks about what happens if you leave, can you roll it over, those type things. Types of vesting, I talked about cliff vesting, graded vesting, immediate vesting. Immediate is what it is. It's now. You start today, you have it today. Cliff vesting's over 3 years. Grade of vesting is in 20% increments. First year's 20%, second year's 40%, third year's 60%, until you get to 100% at the end of 5 years. The current plan that the County General and Board of Ed has is the defined benefit. These are things that are important. I'm not going to read all these because they're in a further slide, but it just outlines what we have today. This is what we have today. The hybrid plan, this outlines what the teachers went to on July 1, 2014, and the state plan. This is the one that gets several of our options. As you see, option 1, which is TCRS, the legacy, as of July 1, 2014. These are the variations. So the multiplier stays, retirement, but you've got 3 options of employee contribution, options of cost of living, benefit improvement, and a vesting. So those gives you options within the current plan that we have for new hires only, not in for our existing plan. Those are things that we can do. Option 2 is the modified defined. They came out with this right before they came out in 2012 with the modified plan. It lowers the multiplier. It changes the retirement age to rule of 90. Rule of 90 is age and years of service equals 90 before you get full retirement. Early retirement is rule of 80 to get to that. So what that would mean is somebody would have to be 60 and have been here 30 years in order to retire for retirement. It has 3 different employee contributions, 2 different cost of living, 3 different rates for employer contribution, and 2 different vesting schedules. So within the modified benefit, as you can see, there's several things that we can do to bring our rate down. If the main focus is to bring the rate, there's things that we can do within an existing pension plan that will help us to achieve that goal as well. The hybrid that first came out was in 2012. Again, this is a lot to take in. They changed the multiplier again. It added in the DC plan, which that was up to 5% contribution. So it could be 0, 2.5, or 5. Then it has the vesting was 5 years only for the DB, did not have a 10-year vesting option, and immediate on the DC. It's partially guaranteed. And then you have the current version, which is what the teachers are under of the DB plan, and then you have the defined contribution at the end, which is a straight DC. So there's no multiplier. This is the retirement under the IRS code, 55, 59 and a half, and 70 and a half, and it's based on years of service, at what point in time you became of age. I mean, there's several criteria that you have to look. I mean, it's...
Does that say what the reduction in the retirement benefit would be for an early retirement?
It did on the
Let's say-
IRS site.
So hours now, is there such a thing,
Is
what
there-
we have right now?
Yes, sir. Mhm. If they were 55, they can retire early with 25 years of service at any age, or they can retire at 55 with 10. 55 and 10, is that right?
No.
55 and,
No, you're thinking of health insurance.
no, I'm thinking of retirement.
They can
There's-
retire at 55, right?
There's
Or
full
25
retirement,
years.
wait a minute, there's full retirement at 60
Yeah, or 30 years.
or 30 years of service. And then there's an early retirement at 25 years of service, and then there's
Think at
something at 55.
So you
It's
can.
either 10 or 15 years of service.
It's,
There's 3 different options they can retire early if they need to,
You
and a
have-
disability retirement.
You have a penalty.
It's a reduction
It's a
factor for each
reduction
one.
of your, what you could get if you, say you have, you're only 55, but you have the 25 years of service. That's one ding. Because, right,
There's
you
multiple
can't get
days.
two dings if you,
Yeah.
if you're not at the
Yeah.
age and you're not at the years of
Right.
service.
So, again, it was way more information than y'all probably could take in tonight.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay. And I've simplified it as best I could. So, and this is a lot to take in, but
Do you talk about part-time status in here anywhere in your presentation?
no, we don't currently offer retirement benefits to part-time employees. There are other entities that do, but we do not.
Is that part-time defined as anything less than 40? 40
Less
hours?
than 30. Well, it's
35.
it's 30 for the Board of Education, and ours is less than 30. 30 or less
I
is
thought-
part-time.
35 for TCRS, 30 for medical and insurance.
Not under, I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it's 30. We'll look and see that, but right now, we submit all the they have a new computer system at TCRS, and used to it was a manual process, and now they get all of the hours worked and all of the wages for everybody, even part-time right now. We're transmitting. Everything gets
goes.
transmitted to them now, so. And that may be something that they look at later to say, what does that, which is why they're compiling the data.
I think, Sonia, it was, they wanted all that information in case you ever did decide to give your part-time retirement benefit. They will have already built the history of how much service time part-time has had, so.
And there's several entities across the state that do provide a benefit to part-time employees,
But we don't.
but we don't.
Now, once
So-
again, are the teachers under 3B?
Yes,
Okay.
new teachers only. It's only new hires as of July 1, 2014. So existing teachers are under the legacy plan like the rest of us were with a 5% contribution. Correct?
You had a part-time employee, let's say it might have even been job share, a parent worked part-time while their kids were getting up to a certain age, and then they went full-time. What about those part-time years of service?
Doesn't count. For retirement purposes, does not count.
Okay. So this spreadsheet, when I said legacy has, the legacy plan that we're under, we have many options that we can choose from. We can change the employee contribution, we can change the benefit improvement, we can change the vesting schedule, we can change cost of living, which is not recommended by myself nor TCRS, because the cost of living is one thing that they just, TCRS just does not recommend doing that at all. They recommend keeping the 3% cost of living, up to 3%. It doesn't give it every year. Some years it's just 1, and there have been years that there's been 0. It's based upon the consumer price index is when they put that in, but they said they would recommend leaving that up in there, just in the event. I went through all of these different options in legacy. The items in yellow were provided to me by TCRS because I didn't have the calculations. Where there is a number, they said they couldn't give us an amount because it would take an actuarial study, and those are quite expensive until we kind of say we want to do something for sure. This is what we would want to look at. We don't want to order a study for all of these options. That would be very expensive. The ones in light blue are the ones, Sonia's perception, that if we were looking to reduce the rate, those are things that we could do while still maintaining a benefit that is, a guaranteed benefit, that would be a cost savings to the county, and would still help them to ensure that they get a benefit. If you see here, this one is the employee contribute 2.5%, vesting of 10 years. The reason the vesting is important is that we're paying for the people who stay around for us, that are not coming to the county just to get 5 years of service at 55 and work until 60 to get a full retirement. This puts some teeth into the game for somebody who's wanting to stay with us. The other thing that I look at is the number of years that somebody stays with us. Used to, if somebody stayed with us for 7 years, they were going to be with us unless something happened. Now we're at like 9.7, so we're getting closer to the 10. So to me, this is paying for those loyal employees that have stayed with us, that haven't just come to us for a pension in a short amount of time. It's actually getting the benefit of that. The other reason that I recommended this, and I'll get into it in a slide later, but we've talked a lot about the rate that we get. We put in that rate each month. We make a payment to TCRS based on our rate for our salaries for that month. So we do that once an employee starts. So when they're first hired, they go on to TCRS. If they don't meet the vesting, so right now it's 5 years, so let's say they work for us 3 years and they leave, we've made that investment, so it's kind of like a savings account that helps offset our rate. Are y'all following me so far? So if we move that to 10, that means anybody that left prior to 10 would help our rate. Because if they left it 5, 6, 7 years, then that money's been contributed for those 7 years, but they've left, so it helps reduce our rate and helps keep the fund.
But would they have
healthy.
anything, any retirement to
No.
show for it? See,
No.
that's wrong to balance the, to put all the burden on the new employees to pay for our current.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they have to stay for the 10 years to get the benefit. Right now, if they don't stay 5, they don't get the benefit. If you work for us 3 years and you leave, you don't get the benefit either. It's gone.
But we pay in those 3 years.
But we pay in those 3 years.
But that's how that's the funding mechanism.
Right.
It's a percentage of salaries. So.
But I just don't think it's right for somebody that's worked here for 8 years to walk away with nothing.
So you think it's better for somebody who's worked here for 1 for us to give them money and they walk away after we spend all the time training them?
If I were a new employee,
You would want that.
I would want to be able to manage my own plan, because wherever I go, I can take it with me. You know, do people really stay for 20, 30 years?
Yes, they
Oh,
do.
yeah.
I mean, how many % of our employees stay that long?
A large percent of our employees do.
Do they do that in the private sector?
Not anymore, they did.
They did.
Not anymore.
They did at one point in time. And I hate to pick on the sheriff, he's here and I saw him and I was thinking about turnover because that's what you're talking about. You're saying if I was a new employee, I'd want this so I could take it with me. But we've already spent and sent them to the academy for training and developing and all that. And then they're gonna walk out with all the investments that we put in for a year if it's immediate vesting. And they're gonna take all their skill sets that we've spent the time. Lynn has a lot of people that she trains in juvenile detention as well. We're gonna put our blood, sweat, and tears into training them, developing, and spending county taxpayer dollars for the training and development. And they're gonna walk away in a year with the benefit that we provided. So they don't have any teeth in the game. It's a win-win. And I'm not saying I'm not pro-employee, because I am, but I'm also for being level-handed, because I don't want the taxpayers to pay for something for somebody that's walking away in a year. I want the employee to have something vested too. That's just for me. I mean, I'm not saying that's the right attitude to have. I'm just saying that's how I look at it when I'm looking at longevity, and I'm looking at them giving back to the county, helping with productivity, helping with consistency in our departments. I mean, because the departments all try to manage the employees who are not performing well, so that's not a factor. So the ones that are here because we want them to be, I would say 99.9% of the time.
Well, if you chose the plan where the employee was putting in the 2.5% or the 5%, that 2.5 or 5% is theirs.
They do take that.
They take that, but they just don't take the piece that the county has put in.
Right. And if they stay that length of time, any of them that stay that length of time, they continue to, well, they keep all that money that we had put in there too.
Correct. They get the dual.
So they're not losing anything.
Which under the DC plan, let me take it a different way. The 2.5% contribution with the 10-year vesting is kind of like the DC plan, because you can do immediate cliff or graded vesting, which we talked about. You can do it either way. And let's say the employee was going to do 2.5% in that and the county was going to match. Well, we would want to set up a vesting schedule. Laverne's the only one that I'm aware of that does immediate vesting. Pretty much everybody else does a 5-year vesting or graded or some mechanism for that. So even under Town of Smyrna, they have graded vesting, so 20%. So the first year they come in, they take all of the 2.5 that they put in when they leave to manage their fund. They take that, roll it, they can keep it in whatever fund they want to. Then the money that the Town of Smyrna has put in there, they only get to take 20% of the money. Because what happens is all the money that the county would contribute goes into a 401A. All the money that the employee contributes goes into a 401K. After they meet their vesting schedule, the 401A money for that employee rolls to the 401K for that employee. And then they have it to take where they want to manage as they choose. It doesn't go into immediately to a 401K for them to take when they walk away, unless we set up for an immediate vesting. So this is kind of the same way. It's just the beauty of this is that there are these experts that know how to manage these funds to help them to grow so that it is a guaranteed benefit for the DB side as opposed to whatever the market's doing. So if you're looking at it from both pieces, this is a lot of information, but that's as easy as I know how to explain it. So when you have the contribution and change the vesting, it kind of it lowers, it doesn't kind of, it lowers your rate that the county has to pay, but then ensures that they have a benefit after they've had some teeth in the game. But the 2.5 they take with them, or 5%, you know, whatever it is that we decide to do. On the next,
Now, if we make them pay 5%, are they gonna be getting some kind of a pay increase, or, you know, that's gonna be a big hit for people?
say that again, I'm
If
sorry.
we make them pay 5% of their salaries, are we going to increase the salaries any?
Well, the teachers have been contributing 5%. And at one point in time, the county employees contributed 5%, but there was a year where they couldn't give them, or a couple of years, they couldn't give them a pay increase like before my time. And they said, okay, we can't give you a pay increase, so we're not gonna make you pay the 5%, we'll pay that for you now. And so that was their pay increase. So at one point in time, everybody was contributing 5%, and then when things,
The state was doing that too.
Right.
And so it happened in the early 80s, this change, where they went from paying into not paying in, then quit.
So basically, what you're trying to do is work it out where they will have some sort of sense of ownership and an incentive. Is that correct?
if the overall goal, if I heard from the legislative body that the goal was to reduce the liability that the county had, that the taxpayers had to assist with, while still maintaining a benefit for the employees, I've tried to find a balance. So I've tried to say, if we have to make a change, if that is the wishes of the body and says we have to make a change, to me, what is something that I feel like will impact our liability in a way that would be more manageable based on what other entities are doing. So if we said, okay, we're willing to go to a rate at 9%, then I was saying, what can I do within the plans that we have to get us to 9% instead of to 11.97? Right now, our rate is 11.97. So what can I do to get us below 11.97? That's the way I looked at this project or presentation. So I was trying to say what reduced the liability but helped maintain a benefit later.
Also give them an incentive to work toward being vested, as I said, like the sense of ownership in their
Right.
pension plan.
Well, you've got this page plus two more that
sorry.
show you multiple options, and you can see on this particular page here, you can see what happens to the contribution rate from the county just by making those few changes. The first one at the top is where we are right now, at 11.97%. And if the employee puts in 2.5%, it reduces our amount by 2.5%.
Well, and you see this one right here. So this one says the employee, well, let's go to one where it's calculated. Here's one that's 2.5% employee contribution, cost of living, 5% benefit improvement, and 5-year vesting. Our rate drops to 9.47, okay?
By only then putting in 2.5.
By only then putting in 2.5. However, if we went to the 2.5, the 3% cost of living, no benefit improvement, and 10-year vesting, it will reduce this beyond that. It's going to be somewhere in between these. But without doing a study, there's no way for me to know that. I asked TCRS to do it because I didn't even want to make a guess.
But Sonia, that's the percentage of that population of
It's only of that
employees.
new
We're
population.
still gonna have the legacy people.
The 11.97 stays in place for our people that are currently in the plan.
Or less or more, depending on the fluctuation of the market.
Yep.
Is there just, maybe I completely misunderstood, what Mr. Salmon was saying, what you were saying earlier. But to Commissioner Phillips' points, if we're looking at every single scenario, is there always a possibility that the teachers could always come back on the county plan and go away from their plan if the state makes that decision?
State employees.
So the state could not make that decision, say, we're gonna no longer fund the teachers, we're gonna make the counties do that now.
Well, the state will make the decision, and then through BEP.
That's what I mean.
Are you
because-
saying unfunded mandate?
Yeah, because, I mean, we obviously are painfully familiar about what happens when the state makes a decision and just says, we'll let the other 95 counties figure it out, but we'll take credit for improving it.
I don't think that's their desire. That's
Well,
not-
I'm sure
I guess
my
I
desire
look-
wasn't to go bald this quickly, but it happened. And my point is exactly that of, to Commissioner Phil's point and Stevens and everyone else up here, if we're projecting what we want to do for the best and most sustainable impact for both the county and the employees, I want to make sure that we're not, if we do make a decision like that, then all of a sudden the state makes the decision because they're heavily invested in charter school decisions and making those decisions to move education that direction. What would stop them from saying, we're tired of funding this, we're going to move that back to the county, and then we're, I hate to say stuck,
They're
but,
not funding it.
They're not
right, but they're funding the teachers.
They're
They're giving us money to pay the teachers and fund this retirement through
But
the
then,
BEP formula.
okay, but then they could end up ultimately still cutting back
They
on
could
that.
ultimately say, we're not giving
And-
you the BEP, here's your rate.
Right.
Figure
Yeah,
it
I
out.
just want to make sure, a lot of this is moving and could always change. And I want to make sure that we keep remembering that. Even though we're talking about new hires, a lot, they're not going to be thinking about what's going on at Murfreesboro when they're at the Capitol making some of those decisions. I just want to make sure we keep that in the back of our mind. I know we do, but.
When they fund or not fund properly BEP, there's a direct impact on pushing the
All of this.
responsibility back to the county.
Right, and I think that's
And
where,
that's exactly what happens even now, currently.
yeah.
But we're already funding, the county is already funding the teachers. It's just that they're on the state plan.
Right.
And we're already funding the county general and the classified. It's just that they're not on the
Yeah.
state plan, so that's the difference. The next slide is the modified, which we talked about earlier. There's several scenarios here. And again, I don't want to go through all of them, but when I looked at everything and tried to say, if we had to go this deep, what would I do? And the ones in blue are the ones that, to me, the 10-year vesting is a big deal, and then the contribution rate changes it. So there's no way to know the exact contribution rate because these other numbers are calculated on a 5-year vesting schedule as opposed to 10. So when you double the vesting time, you're going to reduce the rate because you got twice as much time. So these were the ones that, and again, this helps ensure a pretty consistent rate. The rate that they would draw, the reason it stays that is because the employee is doing a contribution or not for that same amount of money. So it's a shared effort. The next is the hybrid. Sonia's personal. I'm not a fan. And so I did not make a recommendation because I think that there's ways that we can reduce our liability within the legacy or the modified plan. And so there's all these options that you can choose that does something. But if you will notice, employee monthly benefit goes to $692 from $1417.50 or $1594.69. So that's real important to know that that's what their benefit's going to be. And that's huge. $692 a month is huge. And that's a big, and if you do the higher shared responsibility, not only are the employees paying more, but as you see, they're going to $346 a month. It's huge. So
How much
that's,
will they have in their retirement account, though?
they don't get to, this is what they'll draw each month, $346.
Well, how much is going to be going into their retirement account for their personal?
The DB, you
Yeah.
mean? So the DB, right. The DB is $1,000 and this is the DC.
So they're not getting only 346, they're getting 1,000.
13, they're getting 13, excuse me.
Yeah.
You're right. That's the combined, but this is not guaranteed, that's an estimate. This is be the only thing guaranteed, the $1,012.50. You're right, excuse me, I misstated. Because that's the DB piece and this is the DC piece with them contributing on their part. That's a employee contribution of 5%. So the employee contributes 5% of the DB plan for $1,012, and they contribute 1.25 towards the 346. The next,
What are you saying, that retirement, monthly retirement income would be $1,400?
yep,
And if, that's on a $30,000 salary?
33. The only thing that's guaranteed is the 1,000, not the 3. So $1,000 a month is guaranteed, and the 346 is based on the plan. So if it's a fixed rate plan, right now the plan through TCRS is through Great West, and it's at a 3.2% fixed rate of return. Fixed rate of what they'll draw, but that's only good till 2020, and then they will reevaluate and see what they want that rate to be. We could go, Nationwide has a fixed asset account. It's a 3.5% rate of return. From best I can tell, the fees are similar because we have them through NACO, which is the National Association of County Officials. And that stays 3.5 for the life of the account.
The other side of that, though, is $1,400 a month doesn't sound like a lot, but that's, what, 45% of a $30,000 salary, 40%? Yeah, at Social Security. Add Social Security on top of that, all of a sudden, it's 70-75% of what they're making as an active employee, correct?
Correct.
So from that perspective, that's what most people target, is about 70% of what they were making as an active employee. The expenses go down, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Under a straight DC plan, no defined benefit, this is the monthly benefit. For the straight DC plan, 5% contribution, which would be, that can change. The county can say we want to do, and this is based on, TCRS calculated this with the average rate of return of 6%. And the DC plan, you could say, I want to do it on a fixed asset account at 3.5 to not have a risk for the employees, or you could leave it in an account where it fluctuates just like the market does. So they calculated what this would draw based on a fluctuating rate of return with an average rate of return of 6% for their 5%. 2.5, this is a shared, so that's 2.5 for the county and 2.5 for them each. Whoops. This.
But what if they did like a 5% contribution with a 5% match? Would be
So
double?
it doesn't change the benefit because I don't want to answer that because I don't know. I'll ask TCRS to tell us that because I'm not sure. I know that their costs will go up if we do 5% and 5%. Is that what you're talking about instead of 2.5 and 2.5? Because this is a
If we let
shared.
them do up to like a 5% or 6% match.
So the employee has to do 6%.
But up to, they don't have to. You want them to do some, but I
Right.
think they have to be able to opt out. I don't think you can make them do anything with the regular retirement accounts. I talked to several
Depends on
financial
how it's
advisors, and they
set
said
up.
you can't do that anymore.
It depends on how it's set up. All the ones I've seen has a mandatory investment piece, unless you don't have a plan at all.
But if 10% was going into the defined contribution plan, and they're
And
getting
that means
6
the employee would be paying $1,650 a month into their retirement plan, because it's 8.25 for 2.5%. Because that's a shared rate. Is that right?
Yeah. But 2.5% of
That's per year.
$33,825.
Right, per year. So it'd be $1,650 per year.
Paid in.
So it'd be like $100 and something a month.
And that's very reasonable.
But your benefit's only $692.
That,
I mean, they could put that in a savings account and draw that, no problem.
now, if they put in, if we did up to a 5% match, employee put in 5%, county put in 5%.
Okay?
they're gonna get more than $692 a month. They're gonna have a much
Right,
larger
they
retirement.
will,
account.
yeah.
And the average, from what I've seen with decent mutual funds, is, 8 to 12% a month.
That's
I mean, per year.
provided okay, you gotta take into consideration the type of account you have. If it's managed by the employee, that's one thing. If the employee doesn't have the skill sets to manage, which I am not one of those people that could manage that, I have to have somebody to help me with that. If they don't have the skill sets to manage this, they may not even make the 6%. If they don't make the right choices and the right funds to do this, because it's self-managed, it's self-owned and self-managed, but now they can pay a premium to have somebody to manage that, and that's a factor that you include in. I mean, it's different rates for different ones, and it's still based on whatever y'all want to do, but I want, it concerns me that we don't have something where the employee doesn't have to try to have that skill set to do that. There are probably plenty of employees out there that can manage their own funds and it not be a problem. But there's probably a fair amount of them that would know how to do those investments. And if the county doesn't have somebody in-house that can do that for them, which it's not me, because that's not my thing, then that would be concerning to me. It would be, I'm not saying it's not doable, I'm just saying those are things that you would need to consider when you put that together.
So I don't do my own. I have a financial advisor, and they charge a little commission for making the
Right.
investment account, but I'm getting 10, 12% interest every year. I mean, if the people are out there to do it, I think our employees are capable of handling their retirement accounts, because that's how everybody else does it out there in
I
the
don't
private
think there's
sector.
any compounded 12% mutual fund performance
Mine's been
in the
getting,
last 10 years. I
on
don't
the
think
average,
it's possible.
of 10%.
Well, you probably need to tell the rest of us where to
I
get
mean,
our supplemental
Warren
retirement
Buffett needs some of your advice.
It's not my advice, it's my financial advisor. So,
Okay, so the next set, this next slide is a sample of exactly the same across, because I wanted you to be able to compare apples to apples. So this is what we're currently doing today, so that's not in the mix. These are the new things, and these are all at, if the employee contributed 2.5% and the vesting was 5 years, what would it look like? And so this is based on, this is a yearly number. The county would contribute $3,000 annually or $260 monthly. The employee would do $825 annually or $69 monthly, and that would be the average benefit. And it does that for each of these plans. So when you look at this, this tells you, kind of gives you an idea. The bigger thing here, when you go, of course, you're saying your investments have turned, I guess, based on the way it's set up. Right now, the DC plan under TCRS is a fixed rate plan of 3.2. This is what the employee will draw on an annual basis with that 3.2% fixed, with the county doing 2.5 and the employee doing 2.5. So, then the next question was Social Security was talked about, because retirement is typically a three-legged stool. You have your pension, you have the Social Security, which mayor is in trouble. I mean, Social Security is in trouble. And then you have your self-funding. And so it says the same employee on the Social Security website, same employee making $33,000 at full retirement can expect to draw an average of $15,000 annually. When combined with each of the pre-tax amounts, which those were the amounts for the current plan, if you take this amount and add to the current plan here, this is what they would have annually. Under our current plan, they would draw $34,000, revised legacy is $34,000, modified is $32,000. And then the following are based on an assumption of 3.2% rate of return for the DC until 2020 under Great West. And this is what they would draw. DC plan, according to this, that's what it would draw, which is about $10,000 less per year. Board of Ed recommendation. Now, this recommendation was when we looked at this back in 2012-13. I put the same thing in there. The board, I'm sure, has not had an opportunity to talk about this again, but at that point in time, this is what they recommended, and they said that they would feel comfortable with. That may have changed, but to go to the 2.5% employee contribution with the 10-year vesting, And I just said, however, the school board has not been asked to make a new recommendation. So, you know, I'm sure that's something that they will discuss at some point in time, but I wanted you to know that the last time we discussed this is what they recommended.
Are that, Mr. Commissioner, Vice Chairman Player, I don't want to put you on the spot, is this up for conversation again, or it's been 18 months now, is there a conversation around this again, or? Okay. Chair, yeah, sorry,
I'd sit in the either chair.
that's right, Chairman, thank you.
Okay, so based on what I saw of all the calculations, my recommendation to you, if the legislative body wanted to make a change, the changes that I felt like was a balance was either the employee contribution of 2.5 or employee contribution of 5%, going to the modified plan, 10 years vesting, 1.4% modifier, max 3% COLA, rule of 90, rule of 80. So it says thoughts to consider with the straight DC plan option.
Quick question, Mayor. Would you concur with her assessment?
This is the first time I've seen this last page.
Well, I'll stop asking questions there.
I said it's Sonia's.
Yeah,
I went out there on a limb all by myself. So, and that's just based on what I saw trying to be balanced. Now, it doesn't mean that that's, you know, I'm not one of those that says that's my opinion, I'll be yours. It's just what I saw that I felt like was a happy medium. Thoughts to consider with the straight DC plan option. It says long-term cost savings are uncertain because it's really based upon what percentage you do. It does not allow for disability. That is one thing that we have with the current defined benefit. If anybody, particularly our public safety employees, get injured, I mean, it could be anybody, but if something happens and they're no longer able to work, that is something that's covered under our defined benefit now for disability. So, you know, you have a 35-year-old police officer out there that gets hurt in the line of work and he can no longer work again through no fault of his own, he still has a pension to care for his family. You don't have that with the DC plan. Limits ability to attract and retain employees, increases turnover, which results in adding training costs and lower productivity, provides a minimum guaranteed benefit. Plan is managed by the employee, or the employee will have to pay a premium to have their money managed. Limits employer's contribution to current DB plan, which increases future rates for those on existing plan. The DB plan helps maintain costs by pooling risk with other entities, so the more people that are in the DB plan, the less likelihood of the risk. DB encourages a stable employee population, and the DC plans require professional investment management, also known as a plan fiduciary, which is something that would be required of the county to have. It's at an added cost to the employer, and then you'd have to decide who will assume the responsibility and the liability for these plans. Because if they're not managed well by a plan fiduciary, that puts our risk level up in they can sue. I was trying not to say that, but they can sue you if it's not managed properly, and so you have to have somebody that does that to manage it properly to remove the liability from the county. So you have to have somebody.
That bullet number 2, as far as public
This.
safety employees, are there not long-term disability plans that would cover them? And
If they're out for, if they're out for the 180 days, but it pays a percentage of it if we still maintain that.
right, but there's still a benefit available to them. And this thing says it does not allow for disability. And what if anybody? I mean, what if one of the clerk's office employees got disabled in a car wreck? What would be the difference? And I'm just asking that.
It's not. I'm just saying that's something that you have with the DB plan that you don't have with the DC. I'm not saying there's a difference. I'm saying that is something that is available that if you had not planned on, I mean, if an accident happens, we never know what tomorrow's going to bring, that this is a little bit of relief for that. With the long-term disability, it's based on the, again, it's, I can't explain it. We've had some people at the county who have needed it, and it's based on the way the long-term disability is set up. It was.
Sonia, though, but We understand the long-term disability piece that they all have an option of it. In the retirement system, DCRS, if they're permanently disabled, do they have any ability to draw out early retirement benefits?
Only if they cannot perform any type of work.
Okay, but so there is a disability clause that lets them start drawing it out before they reach the,
Under our current plan, yes. Yes. But I'm saying if you went to a straight DC, see, I was looking at from a straight DB to straight DC. If you went to a straight DC, that would be something that you would lose if you didn't have a DB portion. If that makes sense? If you had a hybrid, you would still have that disability piece. If you went to a straight DC plan, you would not have that disability piece because it's based upon your investments.
Would that second bullet apply to your recommendation?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
that's it. I know y'all are ready for me to quit talking.
Okay, well, we're all ready for a quick time. Ms. Stevens, thank you so much. A lot of questions were asked, and I know there's probably more, so I'd like the committee to email or get with you questions that you may have with the state. Any further questions right now?
Not questions, just a reminder to email the presentation to the commission.
Yes.
When you can, please.
And please get the questions, and when I send out the email, I'll put that in there as well, back to me, because some of the things may require calculation. And
In the letter that, an email you may have sent, I was thinking that the next meet, that they would be in November, but you're saying it's gonna be October?
was it, maybe, wait, is this September?
Yeah.
November, you're correct.
November 2nd.
You're
Okay.
correct, it is November meeting, yes.
So you
I was
got,
thinking this is August, sorry. So yes, the November meeting.
so the November meeting, so the state will come to, where TC or RF will come in and answer any further questions. So if you've got questions, you know you're gonna ask, if you get those to Ms. Stevens so that they can be prepared for those questions.
I would also like to thank Ms. Stevens for being so well prepared. I don't hire any one person unless they deal with it every day of every year. It could even come close to
Yeah.
answering some of the questions she did.
You put a lot of research into it, and we
Good job.
appreciate it. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move along. There's two things. What's this thing? Okay, yeah. We're gonna do before the assessor property is invited up. One is to appoint 2 judicial commissioners for the juvenile court. Those nominations are Mr. Wesley Eaton and Preble Acton.
Move to confirm those nominations.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. And also, I'd like to invite Commissioner Doug Schaefer to the table for the in-state college tuition for veterans.
Why don't you guys stand up for a minute? I don't want you to fall asleep on something.
What are you trying to say?
No, nothing, I wasn't there to say. Okay. Well, this is going to be short, and what I would like to talk about is in-state tuition for all veterans. If you remember and look last year at the state, what they did is they almost passed, and if everybody had been there, they would have passed it, for illegal immigrants in the state that have been here 5 years and going to school and paying sales tax and all. They came within, what, 1 or 2 votes of passing legislation would give them in-state tuition. Well, they have done some things for the veterans in this state. First, I'd just like to back up and say there's the Montgomery GI Bill and the post 9/11 GI Bill. Okay, that's what's in. 9/11 is one that they match a certain amount of what somebody puts in. The post 9/11 is more like the old one, like I live with, and this kind of stuff. And basically, what it does is it will pay up to 36 months of tuition for discharged veteran, and with some stipulation, they have to have like 90 days active duty, or if they were injured before that, that type thing. And they have 36 months to use it, and they have 15 years after discharge to start using it. In other words, they can come back and not do anything, about school for a while. But it pays nothing for out of state. And you know, our state universities here have a lot of things that can be good for people out of state. And what you may be even able to get it with a general discharge. I think you can. That's what Jeff told me. I called Senator Ketron's office and got a little bit of that information. But there is also, last year, maybe 2014 it went into effect, the Veterans Education Transportation Services Act, i.e. the acronym is VETS, so it fits in there. And it's basically the same requirement as the GI Bills and what the federal government gets, but with one big difference. You have to apply within 2 years after discharge. Now, I'm just thinking, with all that comes out with post-trauma stress syndrome, the limbs that they've lost, and this type thing, and the youth, and a lot of it's the young guys that have gone in there, and in no shape, to me, within 2 years necessarily, to be ready to go to college to even know what they're doing. I got this thing, I'll show you. It's been used at Home Depot some to get 10%. This is called a DD Form 214. It just tells what I did to service and that type thing. But right here, it's got what they call an AFSC. That's an Air Force Specialty number. And it says 1555, and it's got a C after. 1555 was a navigator. And it says Weapons Systems Officer, which is what I was in the aircraft I flew in. Well, you know what? Then it tells you something, what it's good for in the civilian world. I was in 7.5 years. When I got out, it says I could be a navigator for air transport. You know? Even back in the late 70s when I got out, there was no need for a navigator on any aircraft that flew in this country. Okay? So, here I am. I got a wife and 2 kids. And we had a blessing that even came later. But, so, I didn't know. I had to support them. I took a job. I found something. But these guys that are coming out now with all they've had, and they only have 2 years to make up their mind, that, it seems a very short time for me to get, out of state guys, veterans coming in here. And maybe I didn't mention that GI Bill pays nothing for out of state tuition. They only pay the in-state tuition rate, okay, is all they do. So, this bill, I would like to see us send a resolution. I know it's early, but I see how long it takes sometimes, and then it gets too late, to at least make the time frame the same as it is for the Montgomery GI Bill and the post 9/11 GI Bills after discharge.
Is that 5 years?
It's 15 years. But to make up, they can start something. It's still only good for 36 months, just like the feds. But if you start something, maybe go on your own, I would, okay. Said I wasn't going to take that. I'll tell you one story. Today, we came down and we spent computer money, but decided we needed to get something. And I'd heard about BJ's out here in the Avenue. Went out there, and it so happened our waiter, he was about 50, and he had kicked around what to do and all this. He went into service. He was in Intel, which basically, if you get out of Intel, there's not a whole lot of jobs unless you stick with the government. Well, he got out. He went to some schools. He managed to use up his GI Bill before. Right now, he'd just gotten a psychology degree from MTSU, and he was, having to work as he was going to school because he was taking enough hours, and psychology isn't very good. Just that itself. I don't mean bad. I'm just saying you got to get advanced degrees in that to be able to do anything, and so that's where he's going now. So my point is guys are young. It's just like having to say they don't know necessarily that much. So I'd like to see us at least up it to 15 years. I'd really like to see it say, hey, if you got GI Bill left, if you got months left, that you can do it later on in life if you wanted to.
Doug, are you advocating that we send something to the state?
We send a resolution.
Requesting them fund it, or are you
Well, they're already funding, but it's got
Just extended from the 2 to
2
15.
years of discharge. So like, 'cause, you know, a guy coming out, he can be discharged and find out that all that post, traumatic stress syndrome, you know, that type thing and all. They've got tons of things around in Nashville itself and here. You know, we just started the Veterans Court and this type thing. They got Operation Stand Up. And guys that have lost limbs and they're going back and have a young kid and a wife or something like this, it takes adjustment time, believe me.
Is this a Fed program or a state program?
This is a state program. The state passed this 2 years ago, but they only put 2 years after discharge, which is, to me, not a very long time with what, if you watch some of the shows and stuff. So that is what I'd like to see y'all discuss, and maybe next month, put the resolution in to go to the full commission, because I think.
Actually, just be changing the language, there will be no fiscal impact.
No,
They
well,
will.
it'll be, no, not
Fiscal
really, because
note.
you still only have 36 months.
Correct.
If they go later, I guess it's gonna, would cost more then than it
Well,
does,
yeah.
you know, but that's the only difference, yeah. And it just gives them more of a chance to decide what they're doing in this, or if they get started and they're going very far, they can change and do it and that type of thing.
Are you want us to have a resolution written by next month? And
Yeah, I would, and just so we've got it and we can give it, let one of our legislators, or all of them, I'd like to carry it. You know, so it can go to the commission, so we can get the vote. That's October. That gives us time to get to them, so they got it when they start up in January.
Well, we'll draft a resolution and provide for the committee's consideration next month.
And
You talked to Ketron.
this law you were talking about is a state law already?
Yes, the veterans, what do I say, veterans education.
You want to extend the time available for them to.
After discharge, from 2 years to 15 at least, which is what the federal GI Bills are.
So if you could give Becky and us that state statute, then we could have a resolution sort of crafted that would modify that particular current state law.
I'll go back and look at them because
Did
it's.
Bill Ketron, Senator Ketron, say why?
No, I
they
just
put
talked to
2
his
years?
aides. Okay, I just talked, and they didn't tell me the 2 years. That's what, I looked it up and found it, and it said 2 years on there. About newspaper articles and all this, and I actually found things that, I didn't read the whole act, I'll tell you that. Anyhow, but, you know, they had a synopsis of it, and that was the big thing that stood out. I was proud that we had as much as we do, and started giving it to them, to veterans to help, because if we could, to me, if we can give it to the illegals, and my view on that, but it, you know, doesn't matter right here.
Sure.
But if we can give it to them, we ought at least be able to give to the people that have done stuff, something for our country. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, the assessor of properties pay plan presentation. Mr. Mister.
Good evening.
Evening.
I don't know if anybody needed a paper copy or not. This is just essentially the, anybody else need one?
I will.
Do you want to, Commissioner Phillips, did you want one?
No, I can.
Essentially, this is just, I felt it was prudent to give everyone the guidelines as to how the employees were going to be paid in the assessor's office, so I just wanted to share that with you. It wasn't anything that was necessary to be done, but I thought it was prudent to do that. Just answer any questions if anybody had any. The ones that are highlighted in yellow are the positions that are available in our department to be filled or possibly be filled in the future.
These are actively open positions or positions that you might submit?
Well, those are, a lot of those are positions that we currently have and have people in them. Some are positions that in the future I'll intend to fill.
Understood.
Right.
Thank you.
This, what you passed out is different than what we have on our tablets. I'd like what you passed out. If you have that.
You give two more, please.
So what's the, in a gist, the difference in this pay plan as far as the county plan?
It's the same. Where I have my people structured on it, I use the county scale as the guideline for everything.
What do you mean it's the same? Why are you presenting it to us if it's the same?
Just to show you how they were going to be paid, since I have the authority to place people on the plan or pay them whatever I want. I just wanted to show you the guidelines of what I was using, so you wouldn't think it was arbitrary and capricious where I was just coming up with the numbers from.
I'm maybe confused, I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell, but you said it's the same.
Hmm? Yes, sir.
But you also said it's different. So I'm just not 100% sure.
The only thing that's different is placement of creation of some upper level positions that have not been filled yet. Positions haven't been created yet. Everything else is currently positions that were on the previous plan and were filled, or have been filled in the department previously.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I hear from my HR?
Yes. Steve?
Sean, did you look at this?
The original one that was sent, I went back and took, if you'll remember during the budget process time, and I believe Mr. Mitchell just said that it's under his authority, under state law, that he can set his own wages. And so there was much discussion around that, and also during the budget process, that he did not want to participate in the county pay plan. And so he wanted a lump sum of money so that he could pay his people as he saw fit, which is within his authority. So we stripped all of the property assessor's positions off of the county pay plan because he did not wish to participate in the county pay plan. So I mean, I wouldn't, this says assessors in Rutherford County General. I would not do that because he's not part of the Rutherford County General pay plan. Now, it's within his authority to have his own, I'm guessing, because he has a lump sum to pay as he so chooses, but it's not part of what you approved during the budget process as the county general pay table.
Is it the same as the county's table?
But he's plugged those at certain grades and levels that are on our plan, but we have none of those positions at those pay levels, period, within our plan. We don't have any of his positions on our plan anymore.
So what are we looking for tonight, just for information?
It's just information. It just as I presented the HR manual to you a year and a half ago for information. It's just showing you exactly what's being done, so you know there is a system to it.
So in other words, in this document, what's highlighted in yellow are positions for your office.
Right.
And you plug, like for example, primary grade 5, subgrade 17, administrative support 3. You decided to put that administrative support 3 into that particular pay grade, and then that's what they're being paid.
Right, and admin support 3, which is currently a position that is available on the county general plan. I included that on mine as well. So it's exactly the same.
But the one thing that may be different, and I don't know, so I may be speaking out of turn, he'd have to answer this, but when, like, where you have steps in each of the grades, we have an evaluation mechanism that we evaluate each employee. So each employee's salary is significant or unique to that employee. So everybody's not paid just because you've been here a certain amount of time, that same time frame. So we have a tool in which we use to say what step they could be. So step 10 doesn't mean 10 years of service. It means it's step 10. It's based on our evaluation of their experience within the county. So that's one of the things that may vary, which is why it doesn't need to be on the same as the county general table, because I don't know what mechanism he's using in which to place his people on the table. He may say everybody comes in, you're going to be here, and then I'll designate. So it may be that he puts them in a salary that's on the table in a grade, but I'm not sure how he gets, I mean, that would be a question for him.
It was based on when we've hired in the past, I've consulted with Sonia And we've used the same scale to use based on experience, years of training, knowledge of the field that they're going into, and give up to, usually it's up to 5 years of credit on a new hire and bringing them in. And that usually starts off where their base is. And then we simply follow what the county's done.
Let me say this, when we did have the property assessors positions on our table, they were not at these levels by any stretch of the imagination from which he has now placed them. So when he says they're the same, they are completely different from what we previously had at our levels.
Actually, they're not.
Were they below?
Are you talking about different grades?
Yeah, he's moved these. I guess the best thing is this, I mean, we can't accept, we can't reject, you guys can just be presented this,
Everything
period.
else is the same.
Well, one
Well,
of,
this is for information only.
Yeah.
Number of employees, the same?
Same.
The-
Number of employees is the same.
Okay, and the amount of money that we approved for your office
It's the same.
will remain the same. Thank you.
Anything else? Anything else, Mr. Mitchell?
That's it. If anybody has any questions, just feel free to give me a call.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Anything else from the committee? If not, this meeting stands adjourned.